Hey, what's up? This is Daniel Sun. Welcome to my channel. If you've never been here before, my name's Daniel Sun, and if you do know who I am, and if you've been on my channel before, welcome back. I'm glad to have you. I hope everybody is doing well out there today. I'm not doing a fragrance review today. I decided I wanted to talk about fragrances and fragrance stuff, but not a review. I'm sure I'm going to do a review on a fragrance down the road, review on a specific fragrance down the road sometime, but I want to start talking about other things other than doing a review. The last month, I've been burned out on doing reviews, fragrance reviews on specific fragrances. I've just gotten so burned out. That thought about quitting doing fragrance reviews and, stopping my channel has entered my mind the last week, and I don't want to do that. I really don't. And what I decided that instead of stopping my fragrance channel, I think I still want to talk about fragrances, but not just reviews all the time. I've just felt stagnant, and I felt like my YouTube channel has gone boring, and I've felt stagnant towards fragrances because it seems like every review is just the same thing, just over and over and over, except it's just a different fragrance, but it's the same thing. So what I want to start doing, instead of quitting, I think what I'm going to do is start talking about other things fragrance related other than doing reviews, because there's a ton of stuff to talk about as far as fragrances. I want to start talking about perfumers, and I want to start talking about my favorite perfumers and their background and their history and the fragrances that they've created and where they're from and where they were born, because if it wasn't perfumers, indie designer, niche perfumers, if it wasn't for them, we would have no fragrances. So I want to talk about them and give them credit and respect and talk about them. And I want to start talking about my favorite notes, like cardamom, my favorite spicy note. And I want to start talking about wood notes and one of my favorite citrus notes now. One of the houses that's starting to become one of my favorite houses is a Japanese niche house called Dai Sur. They use a lot of yuzu, which is a Asian citrus. They use a lot of that in their fragrances. I want to start talking about that and where it originated from and what it smells like. I want to start talking about other things, and I think doing that will sort of revive me on my outlook on my channel and fragrances, and it just seems refreshing to think about doing different stuff now. This actually is making me happy just talking about it. It's making me feel better already just talking about it. But this specific talk that I'm doing right now is, out of all the fragrance reviews and out of all the fragrance related videos that I've done, this to me is one of the most important ones, because I'll tell you why. It's learning to experience fragrances as opposed to just smelling them. There's a big difference. There's a huge difference on being mindful of fragrances and just smelling them. All my life up until a year ago, I never even thought about experiencing a fragrance. I thought it was just like something you smelled and that was it. There's a lot more to it to me now than just that. The same way with eating experiencing food and experiencing eating. I look at food differently now, and I look at eating differently now because I've learned to be mindful of when I eat and mindful of my food. I've learned to be able to taste my food and experience it, instead of just like gobbling food down and, basically not even tasting anything. That has made a huge impact on my life, doing stuff like that. Not just fragrances and eating, but everything. But it's made a huge difference on the way I look at fragrances and my appreciation of them now. This works for all different types of fragrances, from what I thought were really linear, simple, basic, generic fragrances. I've learned to appreciate a lot more because I've learned to experience them more. Fragrances, to me, I think fragrances have a lot to say. And if you learn to open yourself up to fragrances and learn to experience them, you will find out a lot of fragrances that you thought were linear and simple and generic. You'll learn that they have a lot of beauty in them. For example, fragrances like this, Halston 112. I used to think fragrances like this were just really something to smell. If you want to just smell something, put something like this on and you'll smell like something, and that's it. In the same way with something like this, a lot of people make fun of this fragrance, and I used to too. Everybody does. A lot of memes and stuff about this, a lot of people poking fun at it. But, I'm really serious about this. I really am. Learning to experience a fragrance. Once you learn to really concentrate on the fragrance and listen to it, to what it has to say, and think about it, and stay with it, and see how it develops, and make a game out of it, even learn to see how it develops and pick out the notes if you can, sort of make it a game if nothing else, and see how many notes you can pick out. Use your imagination. You'll learn that a lot of fragrances that you didn't pay attention to, you'll learn to really respect them and learn to appreciate them more than you used to. As a matter of fact, some of these fragrances, at one time I was thinking about just giving them away, and I'm glad that I didn't, because learning to experience fragrances have changed my outlook about all fragrances that I have, even the ones I used to make fun of. This has become a lot more beautiful to me than it used to, when I thought it was just a little bit of generic citrus and a little bit of synthetic pine. There's a lot more to it than I used to think. It's still not one of my favorites. Don't get me wrong. It's still not one of my favorites, and it doesn't smell niche or anything like that, but I've learned to listen to it and pick up on a lot of other things that I never knew was there before. That's what I'm trying to say. Same with fragrances like Cobalt and Vetiver by True Fragrances. If you really don't pay attention to the fragrance, it smells like a shower gel. But once you really think about it and be mindful of it, there's actually a lot more to it. It's a little bit more complex than I used to give it credit for. And just like some of the other fragrances, this is not one of my favorites, but I've learned to see a little bit of beauty in it. and experience it a little bit different than I used to. And this actually works on some of the more complex, really high quality fragrance. It actually works for those too. Like one of the more complex fragrances that I have is Timbuktu and Habit Rouge by Guerlain. These are complex to me, and they develop very well. But being mindful of them, learning to experience these fragrances, now those have become more beautiful to me, and I've gotten more out of them than I used to. But it's just something to think about. You're not, I mean, it takes practice to do this. It takes, you gotta want to do it, and try to get in the habit of doing it all the time. It's sort of like natural for me to do it now. Every time I put on a fragrance now, it automatically, I start like learning to experience it, learning to listen to it and open myself up to it. It's just become natural for me now. It might take a little bit of time. It might take a long time to be able to develop, to where you're able to do this, but just keep doing it. It'll pay off. Now, my fragrance collection has become so much more important to me now, all of them, than ever before in my entire life. And I wanted to talk about this. I've talked about this before briefly in some of my other reviews, but I don't think really anybody's ever paid attention to me saying anything about that, because I've never gotten any feedback from me talking about experiencing the fragrance instead of just smelling it. But I'll probably end up talking about this again sometime in the future. But give me some feedback. Tell me if you've ever, experienced a fragrance, or if you start, let me know how it goes for you. Whether it works for you, or even if it doesn't work for you, let me know. Give me some feedback, comment back whenever you want to, and let me know how it's going for you. But I just wanted to talk about this because I think this is so important. This right here to me is way more important than doing a fragrance review. It is. So I want to start doing stuff more like this. Anyway, that's all I got, and I hope somebody has gotten something from this. But anyway, I love you guys, and I will talk to you later. See ya. Bye.